Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Happy to see you. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin mostly. Gonna cover some alts, but there is a pretty large move upcoming, I believe. And I just want to talk about that for a bit, given that this could be a great trade if we get it right. Personally, I'm a big fan of Peter Brand. Peter Brand tweeted that currently we are in a fulcrum bottom, so hopefully he is right. Could push us up well on above 10k. Other than that, the margin engine, we only have 2 spots left, so I take it today is the last day that we're gonna have those open, and I'm super excited for that as well. So as usual, if you have any questions, put them in the YouTube comment box, and let's get to it. So starting off with Bitcoin, gonna look at the daily first. As far as I'm concerned, the daily chart is very, very clear. By the way, let me know in the comments if you guys can actually see my chart. Should all be okay. But the daily chart is very simple. Currently, we are creating a triangle. It's not a symmetric triangle, but what's very important here is that we have been forming this pattern for about, let's see, 2 months now. 9 out of 10 times triangles resolve close to the 70-80% completion mark, which could be any day now. And this really shows us that within a few days there should be a breakout here, depending on which side it is. Obviously I think I speak for most of us when I say that we're all hoping this breaks to the top side, but regardless of where we go, I do believe it's going to be a violent move. So I'm just going to open up the log chart. This is the logarithmic scale. And what I would like to do, actually, let's go to the linear scale first, is put down some targets for when we open this trade, explain those targets, and then we're going to have to wait to actually take the trade. To make a target for this trade, we're going to have to look back in history for a bit. The reason for this is that, this is pretty much the final horizontal support, currently located around $5,800. If we break this, there is not really any other real support zone other than 3,000 USD. I don't think we're actually going to go that low if we break down. So what I'm doing, I'm just drawing a support here. I would say this is the final support, and this is what would make up my target if we do break down, because I do believe if we do break down, we're not going to be in this zone for too long, so this is definitely something that I'm looking at as a target. Let's see. No, the question from Miss Bitcoin, forgot to use the log. I'm just going over the linear first before we actually go to the log. But other than this support here, the chance that that's gonna hold is relatively slim. I would like to draw out the absolute longest support that is currently available on Bitcoin, and I'm gonna do this on Bitstamp. As you can see, if I switch to Bitstamp, this is my pitchfork. Have been using this for a very, very long time, and quite successfully actually. And the most important zone of this pitchfork is, of course, the support that has been set here ever since, from August 2015 all the way up to March 2017. So this is definitely a well-tested zone that we can potentially use to decide a target if we do break down. Now, currently, the support would be sitting close to, let's say 4,200. Although I do believe if we do break down, it's not going to look like this, obviously. I do believe if we do break this support zone, we're going to go for a gradual grind towards the previously mentioned support. In the worst case scenario, this could take about 170 days, give or take a few, depending on which way you look at it. But what is really important to understand here is that if this is going to happen, we're pretty much going to resemble the bottom of the previous dump, because bottoms are not set with a single dump. 9 out of 10 times it's going to be a slow, gradual grind around the same price levels. And you can clearly see that this took about 1 year to complete in the previous bear market. So I'm not counting the entire dump over here. This took about, let's say, 415 days, so close to a year. After that, there was just a very long period of consolidation, another 300 days. Of course, we all hope this will not be the case this time. And I believe I speak for most of us when I say that this would be not very beneficial, to put it that way. Obviously, there's still good money to be made, margin trading. But then again, what is this going to mean for the overall market? As far as the bullish target, because, we haven't broken out, so there's no reason to be bearish yet. If we do break topside, and I'm just drawing this very short resistance right over here, but one could also argue that this could be extended all the way back until March. And obviously this is more visible on the linear scale than it is on the log scale, but this resistance has been in play for quite a while. Now, if we do break topside, then I would say we could be in for a pretty good ride. If this is indeed a fulcrum bottom, if you don't know what a compound fulcrum bottom is, it's basically, a head and shoulders that serves as a bottom pattern. That's the very simple definition of a fulcrum bottom. If this is the case, then we could be looking at a very, very good run to the upside. And to decide the target, I'm just going to take this move over here. The reason I'm not taking the entire move is because I just want to focus on this area of consolidation right here. If we do take this whole move here, and we say we're going to break out topside, obviously there's going to be a retest. I never buy on breakouts, I buy on retests. So, roughly that could look something like this. And then we place our buys here. But if we do break out, we could realistically be looking at the 05 as a target pointer, which is currently located at 9,400. 9 out of 10 times I go for the 618. This is the strongest Fibonacci level. It's the one I use for most of my trades, and this would put the target at $10,280. Given that we, if this happens, given that we are, breaking out of a relatively long bear trend, one could argue for a higher target, but keep in mind, it is entirely possible for Bitcoin to go to, let's say, 10K USD and still be in a bear trend. So, it's obviously possible that we could go up all the way this and then just continue the bear trend. And this is something that we have seen. This is something that we have seen in the previous bear market as well. Just to demonstrate what I mean here is we had this very long bearish trend. Then Bitcoin broke out, did a retest, as I've just shown on my game plan before, and then it pumped about 50%. That would coincide with what we are currently seeing. I would guess that this is also about 50%. See, so a potential breakout would obviously be good, but it doesn't really mean anything over the very longest term. So, I'm not bearish at the moment. I'm not bullish at the moment. I'm just waiting for this to play out. If we do break topside, I would say 9,400 is a great target. If we do break downside, and once again, log scale, then my target would be sitting closer to the support that we have set during the slow grind up, which would currently be at, let's play it safe as well, 4,500. That's where I would place my target if we do break down. So that's pretty much it for Bitcoin. Right now, I'm just gonna have to play the waiting game. It's a boring game, but not trading is just as essential as trading. It's not a bad thing to just wait for your game plan to play out. So over to Ethereum. Just really want to cover this properly as well, because as I've said before, I do believe Ethereum is one of the prime indicators for the overall alt market. I've mentioned a couple of times in my live streams that currently we are in my longer term buy zone. I've had buys in this area for quite a while now, and most of them are filled. I'm I'm not gonna buy any additional Ethereum. Personally, I have a good stash of it, and I would personally say that this would be a great bottom. Obviously, if we do go below the very bottom here set in December 2017, which is currently around 0.025 bitcoins, I would get a little bit concerned, because keep in mind, even though it might seem completely impossible, cryptocurrency is very much a subject to innovation, and it is not entirely unusual for coins to basically die. Even Ethereum, as far as I'm concerned, Ethereum is just an altcoin. And even though the chance is like extremely small, it is possible that, for example, EOS will just take over Ethereum's crown, so to say. I'm not betting on that, but it's possible. So for Ethereum, I think this is going to be very much depending on Bitcoin. If Bitcoin does break out of the top side and we're going to go on a nice small bull run, I would say that a realistic target would just be the resistance that we have set over the past couple of years, over the past 2 years. Now, as I always say, 2 contact points don't make an actual resistance. So it doesn't really count, but then again, it's one of the best reference points we currently have. And I also, again, wouldn't be surprised if Ethereum just joins a potential bull run, because keep in mind, it really does depend on Bitcoin as far as I'm concerned. If we go to these levels, if we do break out, then this would be entirely realistic. And this would also be a point where I would basically exit my position. Now, historically, there have been some other levels which have been very essential. One of these levels is obviously the 236 that I've drawn out here. It has served as a very good resistance and support in the past. Basically, the first time that we came into contact with this level was March 2017. But after that, it has proven again and again to be, a very, very strong support resistance. So if we do break topside and we are going on that run, I wouldn't hesitate to dump like a good portion of my position at these levels as well. Let's see, do we have a lot of questions? What happened with Lux? I'm just gonna go over it again. I'm gonna go over this every time until everybody understands it. Going to open my Coinigy for a second here. I didn't really plan on opening my Coinigy today, but then again, happy to answer any questions you guys have. So, you guys should be able to see my Coinigy. Let me know if you can't. So for Luxcoin, I would just like to go over this real quick because it's not very important. When people are trading microcaps, once again, they get very concerned about moves that, you know, are quite violent percentage-wise, but don't really mean anything. And what I mean by that is I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna take the PIVX chart, and I'm gonna keep doing this until everybody understands this. Back in the day, this was called DNet, you know, and I haven't been trading for very long back then. And basically, I opened up a position around these levels, 1700 Satoshis. After which, you know, kind of dumped, lost a bit of money here, got impatient, and I just got out of the trade. I was like, okay, I'm losing money here, so, you know, let's exit this trade. And that's pretty much that, you know. But when it comes down to microcaps, there's only one thing that, you know, there's only one reason why you should be trading them as far as I'm concerned, and that's for keeping them until the next bull market and hoping that basically you will find something like this. If I zoom out this chart, you cannot even see the moves anymore. So that's why I'm trading microcaps. That's why I do not put too much money in any microcap. You know, this is basically a 10,000% move. I have like a pretty good amount of microcaps. I expect like 80% of them to fail, to die, you know, get wrecked. But even if one of these picks pulls off a move like this, I'm gonna be golden. I'm gonna have a good profit and, you know, basically have a nice stack of money. So this is why we trade microcaps. We don't trade them for 50% moves. We trade them for the big stuff like this. And I hope that makes a lot of sense. It should make a lot of sense to me, so hope it does to you as well. But anyway, back to the larger caps, because that's really what I want to do today. Ethereum, also depending on what Bitcoin is going to do, will be in my swing trading stack. If Bitcoin does break down, I'm just gonna keep it in cold storage and not really think about it. Next up is EOS. Let's go over to EOS. Let's see. Just going to scroll questions, not a lot of questions. If you have any questions, as always, just put them in there. For EOS, I have also marked a buy zone, and I did this quite a while ago. As you can see, we did enter it once or twice, and it appears as though, you know, EOS doesn't really want to hang around these levels, and that's understandable. EOS started out of, you know, pretty big. The ICO went very well, even though it went on for a long time. EOS has always had a relatively large market cap. So even though EOS had a good pump, you know, it never really reached the pump levels that most altcoins did, because it started out of like relatively large. Now, what I mean to say by this is that I do personally not expect EOS to revisit the levels below, say, 52,000 Satoshis. And I'm gonna keep my buys here. Fill about half the position, so that's pretty good. Personally hoping that, you know, we can fill the other half down here before we do any kind of second run. But by the looks of it, we could be in for, and I'm not very sure about this, but we could be in to form a head and shoulders pattern. Now, what this would mean is that I would probably have to exit a good deal of my position around 130,000 Satoshis. And I'm going to do that, you know, even though there's like a good chance that EOS will go on a second run. And the reason I believe that is, you know, they raised close to $3 billion during the ICO. You know, so that's great stuff. And that gives them a lot of capital to protect their product. Because believe it or not, that's what most ICOs do. ICOs that raise a lot of money usually protect their product. Doesn't always go very well, you know, but with the fact that EOS has put $1 billion into a fund to, you know, invest in stuff, hedge, everything what they need, really proves to me that it's something that they are, looking after. Other than that, that's not very important. The TA on this could be very simple. And this is what I'm currently aiming for. And that would make a very good conclusion of the EOS pump. And after that, it could just go into consolidation whatsoever. I don't really mind. But that's where my target is. That's where I do believe we are headed. Do we have any other questions? When moon? Good question, man. When moon? That's something I get asked a lot, and that's something nobody has the answer to. I can see we have a request for trade token, and trade token has been doing pretty well. Let me just open the chart the last couple of days. And once again, trade token, TO, is a microcap, and I treat it as a microcap. I'm trading this because I want that 20x, 50x, 100x. But apart from that, let's just go into the shorter term. And once again, this is not a valid resistance because it only has 2 contact points. We can deep dive into the 4-hour chart to see if we really did make another contact point. If we get a retest of the broken resistance right here, in that case, I would say this is a valid resistance. If we do break the high that we put in here, we could be in for a good ride because, trade token is one of my most favorite products in the whole crypto industry. The team is straight on point. The marketing is good. They're working very hard aside from the exchange because, after all, that's what it is. It's an exchange. But apart from that, they are working really, really hard to make sure they get enough cash flow. And what they're doing, they are launching ICOs, doing consultancy, all that. And, they're getting good traction. There are a lot of ICOs that are partnering up with trade token, and they are helping them pretty good. Some of the ICOs on trade token have raised as much as 20 million. Part of this revenue is going to trade token, and that will obviously go into the liquidity pool. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I suggest you check them out. Just go to tradetoken.io, read up on the liquidity pool, because that is, in my opinion, one of the best features of this coin. No, I'm looking mostly to Bitcoin and Ethereum at this moment as an indicator for the small run. It's at the start of my live stream. If you missed it, you can just watch it back. At the start, I dive immediately into Bitcoin, and I explain my setup that I will use over the next couple of days. Over to requests. If you guys have any requests, feel free to throw it in here. Until there are really requests, I'm just going to go over Litecoin for a second. I'm going to do this on Bittrex because Bittrex obviously has the longest history. On Litecoin. Litecoin, I've never really felt it. I've never really seen any reason why this should absolutely be in my portfolio other than, the fact that it was one of the first coins. And just switching over to the USD chart because that is far better for the reason that, Litecoin never really left its range. Even though on the USD side of things, we've had this massive run up. If you look at it from a Bitcoin perspective, it never really left the range it has been trading in. There we go. And I posted this a while ago, actually. Personally, I am very convinced that Litecoin has bottomed out. Hello? Sorry about that. And USD wise, you can see that before this major move up, right? Because not sure why, but Litecoin absolutely went bonkers in a month it increased 500% in price, and then it just got into this very, very long regression, kind of mimicking what Bitcoin is currently doing. You know, it set its bottom in February, just like Bitcoin, and then it never really broke support until it did. And it did so about 3 months ago. And after that, it just had this violent move down. So it's very nice to see that Litecoin could be a little bit further in the cycle than Bitcoin is. You know, Bitcoin is still hanging around above support. And just check back if you missed it. Go to the start of the live stream, check that out. But Litecoin seems to advance a little bit further, and that's just because the smaller the market cap, or so I have found, the faster the cycles go. You know, if you have this very small market cap of 10 million, you will see that the bull and the bear cycles go relatively faster than when you have a major market cap. You know, for example, for Bitcoin at, 200 billion. And let's see. So I think this is pretty much bottomed out for now, and I really do expect at least a very good move back towards the old support before it could potentially continue its dump. So depending on which side Bitcoin breaks out, as I've said before, I'm gonna put my Litecoin targets at 103 US dollars. Obviously, if we do break down, I'm not gonna trade Litecoin. If we do break this support zone that we have set back in 2017, there really isn't much left to look at, right? We have been trading in this range for, let's say, 2.5 months, 3 months, something like that. If this zone cannot hold the Litecoin price up, then I don't have a lot of confidence in it anymore. And I wouldn't really dare to put a target down here for a short. So that's my plan for Litecoin. Very simple, but be honest, look at the chart. And as far as I'm concerned, this does look great. It really does. Even if we drag a Fibonacci over this, I think that the support I've drawn is relatively close to the first Fib level, which could also serve as a target, but I'd like to play it safe. So I'm keeping it a little bit lower. Next request should be Pundi. Let's see. I haven't really charted Pundi a lot. NPXS, that was the one. And the reason is, it doesn't really have my interest. It's not on BitMEX. Not really anywhere except from on Binance. And the reason this never really grabbed my interest, at least to start trading it, is because Pundi is currently in price discovery mode. What this means is that, there is no historical data that I could base any trade off. There just isn't. And what I mean by this is that when I'm trading something, I always look for patterns, I look for clues, and I look for support resistance. And 9 out of 10 of these things can be found in a historical data of, the instrument that you are trading. And it's currently just at its all-time low. It's very close to the bottom that it has set. And there's no pattern, no data for me to say like, oh, maybe we should really trade this. And what I could do is just look at the unbalanced volume just to see like where is the volume going. Appears to be a little bit of divergence here. Price is going lower or is staying at its low, and the unbalanced volume is moving up pretty nicely. But this in itself doesn't really say a lot, and that's why I will just not trade this. There is not always a good trade to be found on all charts. Kyoto Wave is asking, TradingView or Coinigy, which is best for crypto? Really depends. If you're looking at large caps like EOS and Bitcoin, I really do prefer TradingView. And the reason is, just a quick example, if I go to my indicators and I can just pull up the volume profile here, and ta-da, there it is, volume profile. And I need that sometimes. CoinG does not offer these things, right? Doesn't offer volume profile and doesn't offer a lot of other stuff. But then again, if I want to check up Lux, there is no Lux on TradingView. If I want to check up a lot of other alts, they're simply not there, or there's a lot of historical data missing. So that's why I like to use CoinG as well. I think when you're charting, it's very essential to have the proper tools at your disposal. And this is, for me, the best way to do that at this very moment. From an FA point perspective, Puni is pretty solid as far as I'm concerned. The exchanges it's on do provide a lot of volume potential. What do I mean by this? If a coin starts moving up, one of the key things is, how much volume is there to push the price up. And for example, Lux, it's a great coin, great FA, but the only volume it has access to is, about 20 million, something like that, on Cryptopia. I'm not sure if it's even 20 million anymore, and that's just way too few. Considering the market cap of 171 million, this is gonna need some substantial volume to grow. Take any range from, let's say, 10 million or up. Now, Binance obviously can provide this volume. It's doing 1.5 billion daily. So that's definitely a bonus. Apart from that, if you're buying this for the longer term, this could be it. Seems like this has bottomed out. And what I would do if I was going to trade this, I would just mark the bottom, put in some longs, and close the trade if it moves, down, if it breaks the support that it has set here. So it's a very easy and simple trade if you want to take it, but it's just not for me. Digibyte. Next request. And Digibyte always makes me happy. A lot of good memories on Digibyte. One of the very first alts that I bought and held. And Digibyte is one of those coins that have a lot of potential. The product itself is very, very solid. I don't do live streams to go into FA too much, but the product itself is very, very solid. And I'm using this one myself just as a long-term investment. I've got it in my cold storage. And in my previous live streams, once again, I have marked something that I would personally consider a buy zone. And this buy zone would be sitting anywhere between 350 Satoshi or 200 Satoshis. Ever since 2017, start of 2018, we haven't really broken this bottom. And it appears as though we are simply making higher highs and higher lows since the start of this year, other than, the pump we had in January. If I remember it correctly, this was due to McAfee, who was doing all the shilling and blah, blah, blah. But since then, the chart has been looking pretty good. Got a higher high, higher low, higher high. Now, potentially, this is a higher low for now. Could change any moment, but I'm not trading this to, make a quick flip. I'm holding this for the longer term. So what I would personally like to see is a break above the 618. I've taken this whole move here. And if we do break above the 618, which we have previously, like 2 months ago, we did break it, quickly got rejected here at the 786, and then we broke down again. I think it's key to break the 618 again. This could just be like, as I like to call it, a test pump, or it could just be a failed breakout as far as I'm concerned. So targets for this and my game plan, I'm stacking buys in the zone down here, and I really want to keep this, until we reach at least a new all-time high. And I'm just not including this part here. Obviously, this is clearly a pump and dump. It's not really organic, and I don't like to include this part in the chart for the reason that it doesn't really provide any useful data. Maybe for future reference, for example, the 618, the 1618, the Fibonacci extension here does prove to be a resistance, but that could form a nice target. And I'm talking about a multi-year hodl here. Just gonna hodl this for at least another year or until we reach target. Thank you, Superdon. I really, really do appreciate that. It means a lot to me. Obviously, we're all working very hard to create a good product here. And, I just get very happy when I hear people are, finding the stuff useful. And I appreciate it a whole lot. I can most certainly look at Eternity. I believe it's just AE. Eternity. As far as I'm concerned, it's relatively the same story we have as on Pundi. If you take HitBTC, that's obviously not the case. On Binance, it is the case. But if we go over to HitBTC, because we have more data here, I would say that's currently in accumulation. There isn't really any kind of solid resistance that we can draw out here. So I'm just going to leave that out. But it does appear that this could be very well into accumulation mode. And what I would do is, first of all, I want to check the RSI. I'm going to open up the MACD. See what is really happening here. First thing I notice, there is a slight divergence. RSI is moving up, MACD is moving up, price made a lower low, albeit a very tiny one. But you can't deny that there appears to be divergence here. Now, how I would personally trade this, it's very simple. Just mark the low right here, drag out my Fib retracement. If we take our long tool, I would aim for the first Fibonacci level, the 236, and I would put my stop just under the low right here, which gives us a risk-reward ratio of 3. Now, obviously, once again, this doesn't really fit my trading style. 9 out of 10 times when I'm trading something, I'm trading patterns. So you can think of triangles, descending and ascending wedges, divergences, etc., etc. So even though it's not really my trading style, this is how I would set up this position right here. And it's a relatively safe position, good risk reward. And as I always like to say, it's all about risk reward, right? If you always take trades with a risk reward ratio of, let's say, 2, then you only need to be right. Like, let's make it more simple. If you take a risk reward ratio of 1 and you are right 50% of the time, that's when you're gonna break even. If you're gonna bring this up to 2 and you are right 50% of the time, that's when you're gonna make money, right? And it's just super simple. A lot of people find it confusing. There are traders who only make about 20% of their trades correctly, but still make money. That's entirely possible. Next up in line, LineNotes. really a fan of nulls. I think it's a little bit of an underdog. You know, we don't hear a whole lot about nulls on crypto Twitter, on YouTube whatsoever, but I do believe that nulls has very good FA. There, you know, there's not really a whole lot of people talking about nulls, but yet this could prove to be an ETH competitor, at least FA wise. So from a technological standpoint, this could prove to be an ETH competitor. Does that say anything about the marketing standpoint? You know, the hype, blah blah blah. No. So that's something that it really does have going for it. And if we look at the historical data on this chart, you can see that we are very close to an important support resistance. This level has been tested several times, and it appears as though we are going to test it again. Could prove to follow up with many alts and just stay flat for a couple of days. Personally, I would find this resistance valid because even though it did break out 2 months ago, it didn't really close above resistance. You know, we had this wicks. Nels tried, didn't succeed, and then it just got back into regression, into the bearish mode. This is going to be a simple trade that does really, you know, in a way, fit my trading style better. If we take this pattern over here, this would, as far as I'm concerned, be, you know, it's not really valid, but it could be a descending triangle. Now, the major difference between a descending triangle, so on the left, this is a descending triangle. If we find this pattern on a chart, 9 out of 10 times, this means continuation of a bearish trend. The price will often move between the lines, make lower highs, and then eventually break down. It's important to understand the difference between, I would say, a bearish triangle or descending triangle and a descending wedge. If we take a descending wedge, which looks more like this, the price will often move in between the lines and then break up. And the key difference here is the bottom support. On the descending wedge, the bottom support slopes down. You know, it goes from a high point to a low point. On a descending triangle, the bottom support is horizontal. So there's a big difference between these patterns. And, you know, you could say, could this be a descending wedge as well? No, it couldn't, because this doesn't make any sense. So how I would trade this is very simple. I don't really know of any way to margin trade nulls, but if there is, you could take a position on the breakout on the bottom and just short it down. You know, there's obviously not going to be a whole lot of support here. So my target would be sitting at 4,000 Satoshis if that's the case. If we do break up, it's a different story. Gonna grab my Fibonacci retracement for this and just take the first level, 236. So depending on which side it breaks out, could be a nice trade over here. One thing that is very important, you know, and I used to be guilty of that as well. When the price is still trading in the range, in a triangle, you can have like a bearish or a bullish bias. So you could say like, okay, I'm just gonna take the trade here because I think we're gonna break down, and then, you know, it ends up going up. So do not take the trade until you have confirmation. And what I would like confirmation in this case is just a daily close above or below support or resistance. ENG, let's see. Once again, this is just the case for a lot of alts. So that's definitely something that's good to see. ENG is resting on support, and this is, this represents, or this, looks like many of the alts we've just gone over. Right now, it's just in a stable accumulation mode, and I would say there is some divergence on the chart. Officially, this doesn't count because there's, too much time between the start and the end of this divergence. Should be about 14 bars, no more. Obviously, these are more bars, but then again, this is crypto, so it's good to be a little bit creative with charts sometimes. RSI is obviously going higher, and the MACD is going higher as well. Now, this could mean that it's currently close to finishing its accumulation. How I would take this trade, I would be putting buys between, let's say, 9,000 Satoshi or 9,100 and 4,200. And then if we take our FIB retracement, just plop it down, you can see that the 236 is being companioned by a support resistance level first created in December 2017, very close to the start of this year. Tested a couple of times, always proved to be valid, and that's where I would also be putting my target. Obviously, the downside here is that if this does break the support that I've drawn here, it's going to go into price discovery mode, meaning that there is no data on where we might end up. There's nothing we can base that off, which could mean like death and destruction if you're in the long. Ripple, obviously a hot topic. Ripple is on fire lately. I like to go onto the USD side of things, in this case, on Bitfinex. Let me just find the chart with most of the data. Okay. So we're gonna have to do it with this. That's fine. Obviously, this move, once again, there's a lot to learn from this, but this move was super obvious. We had our resistance, and we had our support. Now, obviously, we broke out, and doesn't look very violent on the daily chart, but this was a very sharp move. This entire move was 200%. Final day was like 74% before it dumped, and it dumped pretty harshly. One could argue that if we look at the 4-hourly chart, we have done a retest. This is the resistance right here. As I always say, I don't buy the breakout. I wait for a retest, and trust me, 90%, 95% of the times this retest will happen. So don't get greedy, just be patient. Even though it looks like you're gonna miss out, I'm pretty confident a lot of people here FOMO'd in and were scared they were gonna miss out. But then again, it did do a retest. So as far as I'm concerned, there could be more fuel for XRP. There could be, from a TA perspective, more upside. That being said, let us go to CoinMarketCap. Ripple overtook Ethereum for a day, market cap wise, which is, ridiculous. And I'm not pretty confident Ripple is gonna 2x from here or like 5x from here, right? As if it does, it will be larger than Bitcoin. So there could be some fuel left if we take our FIB retracement over this entire move. There is room to basically move to the 618, which we got very close to the first time anyway. But I'm not so confident that this will actually happen. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason to take a trade at this moment. If you have taken a trade at the breakout or at the retest, if you've made a long, that's obviously a good place to be at. And I wouldn't really be against letting this one run for a bit, because it does look relatively good. Super happy to hear that, Super Don. Very, very glad to hear that. Makes me happy. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. The most important lesson to be learned from this live stream is the position, or the trade that we're gonna take, probably within a few days. So stay tuned. If you're not on Discord, make sure to just visit cryptocampus.io. It's completely free, so there's no reason not to try it out. And hopefully I will see you guys there. As usual, if you have any questions, just reach out. I'm always there. And that would be it. So I'm just gonna finish up some content that I'm working on, which will be released soon. It's gonna be a very nice course. Should be finished in a couple of days. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and have a great week.